Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my college football top 25 for week 2 of the 2023 season. Before I continue, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate you do that. Where you try and go to channels, go ahead and do that. I'm going to recap week 1 here real fast, and then we'll get into the top 25 poll. With week 1 for college football, I mean, you had some crazy upsets, you had some crazy games. A few takeaways. Shout out to the Pac-12. If you include the Week 0 game between San Jose State and USC, 13-0. First time they've done that, I think, since 1932, if I'm not mistaken. Um, just a crazy good things for the Pac-12. And it sucks that the conference isn't going to be there next year, but Pac-12 is going to be a lot of fun this year. Some disappointments in other conferences. I thought that the SEC and Big 12 were underwhelming. I mean, you had the Big 12, TCU losing Colorado, Power 5 school. I'm not going to spend too much time on that right now in this video. Um, Wyoming going. I mean, I said Texas Tech better watch out in that game. Um, I didn't. I still thought Texas Tech will win the game. I definitely liked Wyoming plus 13 though. Won a little money off that. Um, I mean, what can you say? I mean, Texas Tech, they are who I thought they were. You look at Baylor. I mean, probably the biggest upset of the week was that one, was Texas State going into Waco and beating Baylor convincingly. I might add, that was a wild game. There. Uh, you have other big games. We'll talk about LSU and Florida State when we talk about those two teams. Duke Clemson's a game that didn't surprise me. And I'll talk about that game obviously, but that was a game that I watched from start to finish. I want to get into. I mean, you had some wild games. I thought the Mountain West had a good showing, despite Boise State getting ran out the building by Washington. They did get the wins against Texas Tech and Purdue there against the Power Five. Um, I mean, just a wild week 1 of college football. A lot of things, a lot of teams moved into polls. So let's get right into it. We'll kick it off here with the 1 through 5. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on 1 through 3. They haven't changed. Michigan 1, Georgia 2, Alabama 3. Michigan basically played everybody against East Carolina, won the game 30-0. Yes, I refuse to acknowledge that field goal at the end of the game. That is Bush League on East Carolina's part. Um, Georgia, they blew out Tennessee UT Martin. Um, they blew them out. Bit of a slow start for Georgia, but I think the final score was 48-7. Alabama beat Middle Tennessee State 56-7. So not gonna spend a lot of time on that. I think Jalen Monroe showed why he won the starting job in the Alabama game, but Alabama big matchup against Texas next week. We will be picking that game. Stay tuned for the next video. I do want to talk about Florida State. I moved them up one spot to number 4, only because I don't think Florida State could beat Michigan, Georgia, and Alabama on a neutral field. Florida State surprised me. I'll admit, if you told me the score was 45-24 was going to be the final score, I would have thought LSU won the game. Give Mike Norvell a lot of credit. I mean, the way he built this program, I mean, they're the clear-cut favorites of the ACC after week 1. They are a legit college football contender, college football playoff contender. Can't say enough about Florida State. I mean, and listen, was it sloppy at times for Florida State? Yeah. They hung in there. They pulled away, especially in that fourth quarter. Just a wild, I mean, just a dominant second half from the Noles. Their next big game is going to be week 4 against Clemson. Penn State, number 5, moved them up one spot. They did cover against West Virginia. It was a backdoor cover there for Penn State in the final minute there. I thought Penn State looked fine. I mean, I knew West Virginia was going to give Penn State their best shot. There was a bit of a emotion going around kind of last second that West Virginia might pull off the upset. Like, it did not concern me at all. I believe I took Penn State minus 20.5. So they did cover. You look at Penn State. I don't think they proved to me that they can beat Michigan at all, really. Well, I shouldn't say at all. They didn't prove to me or give me enough confidence if the game was this week between Michigan and Penn State that I would be picking Penn State. Um, but you look at Penn State. The next big game is Week 3 against Illinois. Illinois getting a nice little victory against Toledo. So that was good. That was good for them and good for the Big Ten that they got that victory. Um, but you look at Penn State. Move them up a spot in upper 5. We'll see what they do. 6 through 10. I moved Washington up 2 spots. I'll admit I was pretty impressed with Washington. Um, the game, listen, Boise State, they were up after the first quarter, Boise State. Washington ended up blowing it wide open. Final score is 56-19. I watched most of the game because that, to be honest, this was the game at 3:30. Look at Washington. I don't know necessarily how they're going to stack up against these Pac-12 teams, such as Oregon, which I'll get into here, Utah, USC, and a few others. But I thought Washington did good enough to move up 2 spots. We'll see what they do. They do have a game against a Michigan State team that looked a little bit better than what I thought they were going to be. So, and it is in East Lansing, so we'll see. What happens there. Number 7, Oregon. Listen, I'm high on Oregon. I'll admit that. I moved them up 3 spots. I was really impressed with Oregon, despite being an FCS team. If you hang 80 points on a team, they won the game 81-7 against Portland State. That's tough to do even against an FCS team. I gotta give Oregon credit there. I moved them up 3 spots on the road against Texas Tech. It is a tough place to play. A tough place to play. It is a night game. I do feel confident that Oregon will win that game, though. Number 8 is Ohio State. I moved them down a spot. Yeah, you can tell me Marvin Harrison got injured. Yeah, you can tell me Week 1 new quarterback. 23-3 is the final score against Indiana. I mean, I thought for sure the over were hit in this game, primarily because in my opinion, I thought Ohio State would score 50. I thought Indiana might score a garbage touchdown or so, maybe get to 14, 17 points, and Ohio State would get out of here with like a 55-17 win, something like that. I was wrong. Ohio State, I'm just going to be honest with saying this. I felt like Indiana at times was winning the line of scrimmage again. You look at Ohio State, Week 4 against Notre Dame does not look good. That's all I'm going to say right now. It does not look good. I don't think Michigan looks good. The Michigan game looks good for Ohio State. I don't think the Penn State game looks good for Ohio State. I honestly don't think the Wisconsin game looks good for Ohio State. Ohio State's in a lot of trouble, in my opinion. I was not impressed at all with Kyle McCord. I think Kyle McCord is easily probably he's definitely not as good as C.J. Stroud, obviously, which isn't a big deal. And he's not as good as Justin Fields, who I thought was a little bit overrated. Dwayne Haskins was a great pocket passer. He's a better passer than McCord. I mean, you gotta go back several quarterbacks there. So in my opinion, I think Ohio State's gonna have a down year from what I saw against Indiana. I was not impressed at all. And don't tell me that Marvin Harrison got injured. There's enough wide receivers on that. That wide receiver core is so deep and so good that Ohio State should have been still running Indiana out of their own building. So number 8, Ohio State moved them down a spot. Number 9, Utah. I didn't move them at all. Nice victory at home against Florida. That game was close until Florida started making mistakes. I was concerned about Cam Rising not starting, but the first pass I saw in that game basically was whoever they were playing 2 quarterbacks, 70-yard bomb for his touchdown. I was good. I knew Utah was going to win. Um, we'll see what the Utah does. They go on the road against Baylor for a noon Eastern time start there. See, Baylor's going to be salty after losing Texas State, so that's going to be a game Utah should be on upset alert for that game, in my opinion. Especially even though news just came out that Baylor's quarterback Shapton is going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. Still, Utah should still be on upset alert. So we'll see what happens in that game. I didn't move Utah at all. I think this team's gonna be a lot better when Cam Rising comes back because you could tell they're a little bit limited offensively, which is okay with Cam Rising not being there. But Utah number 9, big conference, big win for the Pac-12 there against Florida, a Florida team which I want to be honest, it's gonna be a rough season. Number 10 Notre Dame. I moved them up 3 spots. Notre Dame dominant wins against Navy and Middle Tennessee State. Um, the only concern I have with Notre Dame is I watched the Navy game. It did feel like that Notre Dame was leaving wide receivers open. Now, granted, I'm gonna say a lot of that has to do with Navy running the triple option. You look at Notre Dame. Sam Hartman was a steal. Notre Dame, in my opinion, Um, they're probably a college football playoff contender the way that team is. I mean, they've only given up 6 points so far this year. Now granted, the Ohio State game obviously, I think the Duke game's gonna be fun. That game's gonna be really interesting. Louisville could be interesting. You have Clemson, so it isn't Death Valley, so we'll see what happens there. But Notre Dame, I think they are a top 10 team. I moved them up 3 spots to number 10. Let's see who we got here next. Okay. Number 11, Oregon State. I moved them up 3 spots. Very impressive win against on the road against San Jose State. A San Jose State team, they're 0-2, yes, against 2 Pac-12 teams. But I gotta admit, I thought Oregon State looked better against San Jose State than Southern Cal did. Um, Oregon State, we'll see what they do. I think out of all the Pac-12 contenders, they're probably the least talented. But at the same time, they're probably one of the most physical in the Pac-12 as well. So that could go a long way. We'll see how they do in Pac-12 play. I don't think they really have a big out-conference game with Oregon State this year. But if they go 3-0 in the non-conference, I think they go at least 5-4 in the Pac-12. So we'll see what happens there. Number 12, Southern Cal, moved them up 5 spots. Yeah, I do think it's a bit of an inflation that I moved them up 5 spots. I'll admit they did look a lot better against Nevada than San Jose State. Granted, I think San Jose State is a lot better than Nevada. San Jose State has a decent wide receiver group for a Mountain West team. Um, Southern Cal, I mean, they're going to be going up against the Pac-12 and Notre Dame. It's gonna be interesting to see how they play. The defense has to be pretty good, in my opinion, for Southern Cal to really get where they want to be, which is competing for the college football playoffs. So I moved them up 5 spots. They had 2 nice victories against Mountain West schools. I believe they get Stanford and Arizona State before they really get into the meat of the pack of their schedule. So probably another 2 victories before they get Colorado. Number 13, Kansas State moved them up 5 spots. They blew out their FCS opponent, I believe, 48-0. I forget who they play. I think it was Southeast Missouri State, if I'm not mistaken. Nice victory for them. I just trust Kansas State. I mean, I just trust Chris Klieman. Um, I picked them to win the Big 12 at the start of the season. They did absolutely nothing to change my. Nothing has changed my mind really with the Big 12, especially with some of these teams not really playing good out of conference. Um, you look at Kansas State. Um, we'll see what they do. They have an out of conference game against Mizzou. It is in Mizzou. Could be a bit tricky, but number 13, Kansas State. Number 14, Iowa, moved them up 1 spot. They only beat Utah State by 10 points. I get that. And this is kind of by default here. But at the same time, that team, Iowa's a top 15 team. Say what you want about the offense. K McNamara is 1,000 times better than Spencer Petras or wherever they had a quarterback last year. Um, Iowa's gonna be fine. I'm not concerned. They get the Hawk clone, not the Hawk clone, the Cyhawk trophies this upcoming week. That game should be interesting. We'll see what happens there. Number 15 is Kentucky. I moved Kentucky up 1 spot. A bit of a slow start against Ball State, but they did pull away, winning the game 44-14. I'm high on Kentucky this year. Nothing has changed my mind not to be high on Kentucky. Um, Kentucky, we'll see what happens. They do get the SEC East. They get Georgia, obviously, Tennessee, who I'll talk about here in a minute. Um, and the whole SEC East. They do get Bama out of the West as well, so bit of a tough schedule, but they can navigate. I still think Kentucky can navigate through the schedule. The non-conference is pretty much a give me outside of Louisville. So number 15, Kentucky. Number 16, LSU. I moved them down 12 spots. So I think LSU is still a top 25 team. Yes. Do I think LSU absolutely shit the bed in the second half? Yes. Worst case scenario happened there for LSU, in my opinion. I expect LSU to be better throughout the season than what we saw in that second half. Now, granted, I do think the college football playoff hopes are out the window. You cannot. I mean, you look at the schedule for LSU; they're at least losing another game in the SEC, and probably in conference play in the SEC. Um, they go on the road against Ole Miss, Bama on the road, Texas A&M. That game there is going to, I think, be a bit tricky. You look at LSU, they're probably going to lose another game or two, but I still think this is a top 25 team here in LSU. And to be honest, they have a road game against Mississippi State. We'll see what happens there, but -2, I dropped them 12 spots. Still a top 25 team, but number 16 LSU, number 17 North Carolina. I was impressed with North Carolina. I moved them up 4 spots. I was pretty high on picking South Carolina to win uh, the Carolina Bowl here again in the Duke Mayo kickoff against South Carolina. North Carolina, you heard the talk. The defensive line is going to be a lot better. The defense is going to be a lot better. I don't care that they gave up 350 yards passing. The running defense for North Carolina was outstanding. Um, Drake May is a very good quarterback. He's probably the second best quarterback in the country behind Caleb Williams, and he's going to make plays for North Carolina. North Carolina is an ACC contender, in my opinion. Um, from what I saw in week one, they're probably the second best team in the ACC, honestly. Even though a few teams will have something to say about that. But you look at North Carolina, very impressed with them. I was really impressed with North Carolina. I moved them up 4 spots to number 17. Number 18, Ole Miss. I moved them up 2 spots. Hey, they did hang 73 points on their FCS opponent. They won 73-7. Pretty impressive there. Um, they didn't prove anything to me of them winning the SEC West or being a college football playoff contender, but they're definitely a top 25 team. They're hanging around the top 25. It was a nice victory, hanging 70 points on their FCS opponent. Move Ole Miss up 2 spots. Texas moved them up 2 spots as well to number 19. And I'll admit, I'm still not sold on Texas. I don't believe they covered against Rice. Big game against Alabama this week. College Game Day is going to be there, 7 o'clock on ESPN. I cannot wait for that game. That's the game of the week. There, number 3, Alabama hosting number 19, Texas. You look at Texas. I mean, did they get the job done being Rice? Yes. It didn't really convince me of anything. I believe the spread's 6.5. Last time I checked with Texas and Alabama. I will bet heavy Alabama to cover that spread. So Texas, they moved up 2 spots, and who knows? Texas might shock the world and beat Alabama. I don't expect that. But I did move Texas up 2 spots. Number 19, Texas. Number 20, Tennessee. Now, I'll admit, Tennessee got the job done. They did move up a little bit by default, but they deserve to get moved up. Very impressive win they covered against Virginia. They were playing probably the worst Power 5 school in the country. I think Virginia is the worst Power 5 school in the country. And you could tell by the comments by Tony Elliott. Oh, I'm just happy to see them compete after last year's incident. I shouldn't really say it like that. I know that's bad to say. Um, and what happened at Virginia last year was horrible with the football players getting shot and killed. But you could tell Tony Elliott did not. You could just tell by the demeanor and the atmosphere around Virginia, it's gonna be a rough year. Um, Tennessee they moved up 4 spots to number 20. We'll see what they do throughout the season. It's pretty much a from I believe Virginia was really the only game that was noteworthy in the non-conference. we'll see what happens with Tennessee this year. I still think they're going to lose at least 2 or 3 games. But number 20, Tennessee. Number 21, Duke. I'm filming this right after the Clemson Duke game. Duke, I said it on the channel. I said Duke was going to pull off this upset. This was my upset pick of the week. I was right. Duke got the win, and they didn't just get the win. They got it so convincingly, in my opinion. You gotta consider Duke as an ACC contender. I don't think they make the playoffs unless they go 13-0 and shock the world. That would be stunning if Duke goes 13-0. But I'll say this quarterback Riley, he's legit. You look at you look at Duke defensively, probably one of the best defenses in the ACC, led by the head coach Mike Elko, which and he at most he will not be coaching at Duke past 2024. At most, he will be the new head coach. He'll be a head coach at a much bigger program starting in 2025, possibly even starting in 2024. Um, you look at Duke. You got to put them in the top 25. I put them in number 21. A bit of a tougher schedule this year compared to last year for Duke. Notre Dame game, obviously. I think that's a week 3 game, if I'm not mistaken. But you look at, Duke can win the table. They really can. So keep an eye on Duke. Number 22, Tulane. Listen, Tulane proved me wrong. I got to admit, they beat a team that I had in my preseason top 25 in South Alabama and beat them convincingly. Um, So, do I think Tulane is going to win the American? No, I'm still holding out hope for UTSA. I don't care that UTSA lost that game to Houston, which I'll get into in a minute. But because it's not a conference game. But Tulane, I gotta give them credit. They get a big game against Ole Miss this week in a top 25 matchup. Number 18 versus number 22 there. We'll see what happens. I think Tulane's a 7 or 8 point dog in that game. It is in Tulane, so Tulane will have a home field advantage, but we'll see what happens there. Number 23, Oklahoma. I was impressed with Oklahoma. I know it was against an FCS opponent, um, but at the same time, 73 points compared to what was going on last year, where Oklahoma was struggling to reach 20 points at times. I gotta say, Oklahoma is a team that I definitely think can win the Big 12 this year. Um, Number 23, Oklahoma. I was very impressed with that. Number 24, Colorado. Is this maybe a little bit of an overreaction? Maybe. I'm telling you this right now. Travis Hunter might be the best football player. Might be the best football player in college football. Um, he riled me, Travis Hunter. Uh, give Colorado credit. I said it was gonna be boom or bust year one. It's gonna be a boom. They get Nebraska next week. I'm telling you right now, I'm picking Colorado to win that game. Colorado State, they'll win that game. Colorado. Um, you get USC, you get Oregon. I do think Colorado loses those two, but start the season out 3-2. You look at the rest of the schedule, it's pretty manageable. I'm not saying Colorado's going to win the Pac 12. I'm not going to say they even make the Pac 12 championship game. I think Colorado can win 7, 8 games, though. I really do. Um, you do have that date at the end of the year against Utah during rivalry week. That will be interesting. But Colorado, I think you got to put them in the top 25. I mean, they look very good. Now, defense. Now, Grant, they don't have the horses, I think, to go up against the big dogs. I kind of alluded to that. Or the depth. I could see like an Oregon State or a Washington State, two teams that are on Colorado's schedule being physical of them. Maybe Colorado dropping both of those or at least one of them. But you got to put them in the top 25. Number 24, Colorado. Number 25, Clemson. I'm being kind by keeping Clemson at 25 because I really want to drop them. But I couldn't I couldn't make the argument to over the team I was going to keep in the top 25, and I'll allude to that later. But Clemson's in a world of trouble, in my opinion. Not only did Duke beat Clemson, Duke looks so much better than Clemson. Look at Duke. I think Florida State's miles ahead of Clemson. Uh, Notre Dame's on Clemson's schedule. I would probably favor Notre Dame, despite that game being in Death Valley right now. You look at Clemson. I don't even know if they're going to be in the ACC championship game. You know, Pitt and Louisville is going to have something to say. Miami's going to have something to say about the ACC, in my opinion. Don't rule out Syracuse. It always seems like Clemson struggles against them, and this could be a year Syracuse pulls off the upset. But Clemson's in a world of trouble. And here's the thing: they were driving the ball okay against Duke. Red zone turnovers, fumbling it twice in the red zone. Um, just no wow factor for Clemson. Really no wow factor for Clemson. Um, I just thought they looked pedestrian. I'm keeping them at 25 because I believe in Dabo Sweeney, but I'm telling you right now, I think this could be a year where Clemson might only win 7, 8 games. This could be one of those years for Clemson where it's like it could be one of those years that they're gonna have to make a lot of moves. And let me tell you something. I thought they made some moves last year for Clemson. This past offseason, getting Garrett Riley. I thought that was a big move for them. It didn't. I mean, 7 points. I mean, Garrett Riley last go around. His final game at TCU is OC 7 points. I mean, I hate to say that, but I mean, there was no improvement. There was no improvement with the offense, in my opinion. Now you can say turnovers bit Clemson in the ass, but you got. I mean, eh, that's not an excuse for me. I mean, Clemson is a team that should be beating Duke 9 out of 10 times, and the one time that they don't beat Duke, anomalies. This wasn't an anomaly. Duke was clearly the better team. Clemson has a lot of issues. And I think the run's over for winning national championships for Clemson. I thought that last year. And it clearly is. But I'm going to be kind, and I'm going to pick Clemson at 25 because the team I have at 26, I just couldn't make the argument because I thought their showing was pretty pedestrian as well, even though I'm still high on them, and we'll get into that. But number 25, Clemson. So that's the top 25. All right, teams that dropped out. Number 11, TCU. TCU will be ranked number 27 if this was a top 27 poll. Um, I dropped TCU primarily because they're 0-1. I still think TCU could win games in the Big 12. And everything. I mean, no loss to Colorado is not embarrassing. I mean, Colorado clearly had the better quarterback and the best player on the field, in my opinion. Um, but you look at TCU, you gotta think, damn, we came off the runner-ups last year, and we go out and lose a game in our own stadium like that in a shootout. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a rough year for TCU, but that was clearly a 1 year run wonder. I mean that was clearly an anomaly last year for TCU. And listen, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just TCU is falling back to earth. Number 19, UTSA. Do I think UTSA got a horseshit spot eh, on the 4th and 1 or the 3rd and 5 or whatever? Yes, it doesn't matter. Frank Harris played terrible. 3 interceptions. I was surprised by that. I thought UTSA was going to take care of Houston and give Houston credit. This was a win for. I mean, a lot of people are high on UTSA. I still think some people are high on UTSA. I still think they're going to win through the American personally. If Frank Harris can stop throwing interceptions, um, you look at, but it's a big win for Houston. It's a big win for Dana Holgorsen. I do think Dana Holgorsen's seat was a bit warm coming into this year. It's a big win for him. It really is. Um, you look at UTSA. I still think they're going to win through the American. Number 21, Alabama. They got kicked out of the poll. They lost to Tulane. I'll admit, I was very high on this team. Tulane took care of them. I mean, say what you want. Tulane took care of them. Now, do I think South Alabama is still going to have success in the Sun Belt? Yes. Do I think South Alabama still has a crack at 10 wins? Yeah, but they're going to have to prove some things to me. I mean, that was kind of embarrassing against Tulane, not going to lie. And then 25 BYU. BYU would be number 26 if this was a top 26 poll. Um, the reason why I couldn't put BYU over Clemson is because BYU just looks so pedestrian against Sam Houston State, in my opinion. I mean, Houston State, yes, they're an FBS school, Conference USA school, but first year in FBS, still kind of an FCS team. You gotta beat them better than 14-0. Now I'm happy you pitched a shutout, but BYU, I was surprised that they didn't run. I mean, if BYU, let's say they won the game, I don't know, 49-7, they were beating up at 25. I would have dropped Clemson out, but I couldn't do that despite me being high on BYU, which I still am. So BYU, they got dropped out, but if this was a top 26, BYU would be up to 26. Teams I consider, man, I can't speak tonight. If this was a top 28, Wyoming would be up to 28. I said take Wyoming plus 13. This was a game that I thought that Texas Tech would struggle to give. This would be like a snake pit type game that Texas Tech would struggle to get a win in. I thought Texas Tech would pull it out. I was wrong. Give Wyoming a lot of credit. And this ain't the first time they've done that. Wyoming under Craig Bowl. They did it with Mizzou a few years ago. So very, very impressive win with Wyoming. We'll see how the schedule turns out for them. It always seems like they have no talent, and then they find a way to win 8, 9 games every year. Wyoming. I mean, Craig Bowl was doing an outstanding job in Wyoming. Louisville. They got the win against Georgia Tech in Week 1. I said Georgia Tech's gonna be better than what people think this year, and I thought they proved that there in Week 1. But Louisville, a team that the schedule is easy, they could find themselves winning 8, 9 games pretty easily. Miami, they beat Miami of Ohio pretty convincingly. They get a game against Texas A&M this upcoming week, a game that's probably going to be for a top 25 spot in my poll. Speaking about Texas A&M, I'll go a little bit about order of this list. A very impressive win against New Mexico, yes. Still need to see a little bit more. If they go ahead and beat Miami, I'll put them in the top 25 if everything works out. Wisconsin. Um, a lot of people are high on Wisconsin. They beat Buffalo 38-17. Now, a lot of people think that's going to be a bit underwhelming. I don't think it is personally because if you look at Buffalo's recruiting, they are probably one of the most talented teams in the MAC, having the previous top recruiting classes in the MAC there at Buffalo. Um, they get a game against Washington State in Week 3. I'm very interested in that game there, so keep an eye on that. But Wisconsin is a team I consider. So that's the top 25. Comment down below. Tell me your top 25. Tell me a team that I'm missing. I always like hearing from you all. Thanks for watching the video. Hit the thumbs up. Please scratch the channel. Greatly appreciate you do that. McD the Beast signing off.